Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this is your notes for mole-to-mole stoichiometry. So as you saw in the virtual lab, basically you've got a certain number of atoms of this, a certain number of atoms of that, a certain number of atoms that will become a certain number of atoms of that. All right? So this is the way that all stoichiometry works. All right? Now today we are going to concentrate on this part right here. Okay? And we're going to build the whole thing up that way. And what we're going to do is we're going to have some number of moles of a known, and then we're going to use a mole ratio to translate that into moles of the unknown. Okay? So the unknown, as it says here in the scaffold, will be either in moles, and that's the middle column, right? Right here. Or mass in the last column. Unknown moles, unknown mass. The known will be either in moles in the middle column or mass in the first column. All right, so enough of the explanation. Really, you don't understand it until you actually see it. All right, so here we go. How many moles of hydrogen will be produced by reacting 3.78 moles of sodium with water? All right, so first thing we need to do, we need to figure out what our knowns and our unknowns are. So our unknown is how many moles of hydrogen, right? So here is our unknown. Our moles of hydrogen is our unknown. So moles, unknown. So this is where we're going to be. Moles right in the middle. All right, so how many moles of hydrogen? Now you have to label it in these things. You have to label what the substance is. Will be produced from reacting 3.78 moles of sodium. So that is our known. 3.78 moles of sodium. Our known is 3.78 moles of sodium. And we're going to multiply that by something. Okay, now, if we want to use the scaffold here up above, then we would say that our known is 3.78 moles of sodium, right? And our unknown is moles of hydrogen. Now, in order to get from one to the other, you have to go through what's called the mole-mole ratio. And the mole ratio is always the moles of unknown to the moles of known from the equation. All right. So since this is the first time, we're going to slow down and we're going to take it piece by piece. First, moles of the unknown. Well, from the equation, actually, I don't want to do that. From the equation, the moles of unknown is 1. That's from the equation, right? And from the equation, the moles of the known is 2. 1 mole of hydrogen, 2 moles of sodium. So our mole-to-mole ratio in this case will be 1 mole of hydrogen, 2 moles of sodium, right? So that's our other known. 1 mole of hydrogen, 2 moles of sodium. That's always going to be a known for us. Alright, so I'm going to color that orange, color that orange, and color that orange here. And I'm going to color this blue, because that, after all, is my known. And I'm going to color this yellow, because after all, that is my unknown. Okay, now look what happens. You have moles of sodium on top, moles of sodium on the bottom, so those are actually going to cancel. And then what you're doing is you are multiplying 3.78 times 1 and dividing it by 2. 3.78 times 1 is 3.78. Divide by 2. 1.89 moles of hydrogen can be formed from 3.78 moles of sodium. Alright, so why does it work that way? Well, basically it's pretty simple. 2 sodium will give you 1 hydrogen. So 3.78 sodium will give you half of that, 1.89 hydrogen. Now, several different ways of looking at this. Another way of looking at this is 3.78 moles of sodium times 1 mole of hydrogen over 2 moles of sodium is equal to 1.89 moles of hydrogen, just like below. Alright, so let's try another one. How many moles of hydrogen? How many moles of hydrogen? How many moles of hydrogen? How many moles of hydrogen are required to create 7.9 moles of ammonia? Are required to create the known 7.9 moles of ammonia. Now, you're always going to have the moles of the known multiplied by the mole ratio. What is the mole ratio? The mole ratio is always moles of the unknown over moles of the known, right? So our moles of the unknown, that's the hydrogen, is 3. From here. Moles of the known, that's ammonia, is here. So when we multiply by our mole ratio, we're going to get 3 moles of hydrogen over 2 moles of ammonia. So I'm going to multiply 7.9 times 3, and I'm going to divide it by 4. 7.9 times, actually, let me back that up. Probably easier way to do it. I'm going to take 7.9 and I'm going to multiply it by 3 over 2. So I'm going to put in 7.9 times, parentheses, 3 divided by 2, close parentheses, equals 11.85 moles of hydrogen. All right, so it was asking me moles of the unknown, right? And it was giving me moles of the known, and that's the reason I'm in that middle column at the moment. All right, so that's where we'll start. There's 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the practice on these, and you can run them through the answer checker to check your answers before moving on to the quiz.